I think where a lot of marriages go wrong is before they even get married. And that's because of this idea of a wedding. It's because of this idea of a wedding. That's the thing I want to talk about more specifically. I don't think it's marriage that's the issue. I know marriage gets a lot of scrutiny. We could talk about all the data points and all the blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, just because you can't hit the head of the nail with the hammer doesn't mean something's wrong with the hammer. Pause. Doesn't mean anything is wrong with the hammer. Marriage in itself, if we just talk about marriage, what's the downside of marriage? Like, if we just talk about marriage, right? Again, if we talk about a hammer, it's a great tool. Could you hit yourself? Could some other things happen and then you get hurt? Yeah, that's what happens. Stuff happens. Marriage is no different than anything else, any other tool in our life. So I get marriage gets a lot of scrutiny, but in my opinion, it's not marriage that's the issue. It's the people involved. That's the issue, the people involved. Furthermore, I think that there's been an intentional attack on the institution of marriage, specifically for the Black community, to further separate us as people. Something that has always been top of mind for people in power, for those who were brought here against their will. They've done their best, people in power, to make sure that the people who were brought here against their will don't get their just due. That's the reality. From the start, they've tried their best to tear families apart, and then post-slavery, the prison system, incarceration, privatized prisons, so many different systematic attacks on the community that just tear apart families. I get why so many people are afraid to get married, but where I think a lot of people go wrong is before we even get married. Before we even get married, are you doing this for the right reasons? Now, from my perspective, I'm going to share what I mean by this and some things that I would just have hard lines, not budging when it comes to certain things and choosing a partner to marry. You can't compromise on certain things from my perspective as a Black man. You need to know that this decision, which has so much risk involved, will at least be worth the pursuit. So we're going to discuss how you can maybe see if this person is worth pursuing, that idea of marriage. But more importantly, I think where a lot of marriages go wrong is before they even get married. And that's because of this idea of a wedding. It's because of this idea of a wedding. That's the thing I want to talk about more specifically today, the idea of the wedding. I'm not here to suggest that weddings are evil. Not here to make that suggestion. Is more of a detriment to the marriage than something that sets you up for success. That would be my argument. And so when I look at this institution of marriage and the risk involved, I look at how we approach weddings, and unfortunately, these weddings create a huge stress and strain on not only the relationship, but also on everyone's finances. Weddings are not cheap at all. The investment, both monetarily, emotionally, time-wise, when it comes to planning a wedding, it can get crazy. And that sort of stress, when you're not even married, it doesn't, in my opinion, that approach to your marriage is the wrong approach. Treating the wedding as a prerequisite to a marriage, I feel, is the wrong approach. I think we should consider a different pathway that sets up the marriage to be more successful long term versus the way we've been approaching this.